Hello, students, and welcome to our math lesson today. We will be working in Learn Zillion. Hopefully, you already have a copy of the lesson, and it is Monday, November 15th. This is an A day. And today, our learning target is to identify and the corresponding points before and after a transformation. And we will also know the difference between translations, rotations, and reflections. And we've got lots of new math terminology today. I want you to get calm, focused, and centered. Always an important thing in math. We will warm up with this lesson, a pair of quadrilaterals, and then we'll name the moves that we make when we look at some figures, and we will have a cool down. And please ensure that you can check off all the boxes of your success criteria when you are finished, that you are focused and ready to learn, that you've completed your warm-up, your lesson, and your cool down, that you've read your lesson summary, and that we hole punch our work and put it in our binder. So for now, let's get centered. Let's block out distractions. Let's be ready to learn. And let's remember that you are worthy, you are smart, you are capable. You can do this. So let's get your name on all of your pages. And let's begin thinking about the first picture you see, which is the pair of quadrilaterals. And that's right here. Take a look at these. So here we have a pair of quadrilaterals. We are asked to estimate the angle of rotation. So it says that quadrilateral A can be rotated into the position of quadrilateral B. So I want you to stop the tape for 5 minutes, pause for 5 minutes. If you haven't already, take a look at that and see what you think the angle of rotation is for that. So I hope you've worked with this and thought about this. We have something here called the center of rotation right here. We can call that the center of rotation. And we are asked to look at this as figure A rotated into the position of figure B. So we're starting with figure A, and then it gets rotated somehow on this center of rotation onto figure B. So we know a couple of things. We know that this is a 90-degree angle. We also know that a straight edge is a 180-degree angle. So we can estimate based on what we already know. So let's take a look at figure A. So figure A, I'm going to use the highlighter for this. So we have this kind of base of figure A coming out of the angle of rotation. And if I were to extend that line straight across, this would be 180 degrees. If I were to take a 90-degree angle from that base, and there's our symbol for 90 degrees, this would be our 90-degree angle. Let's switch the color again so we can see what we've got. We've got figure A, and I'll highlight that in orange. Is rotated so that this base of figure A now becomes this base of figure B. So what is the angle of rotation that we're looking at? this angle from here to here. We're only asked to estimate. If you have a protractor, you can go ahead and put that on your paper and measure it, but let's estimate first. I know that it's got to be greater than 90. I know that it's quite a bit less than 180. So if we were to measure this, we would see that the angle of rotation is indeed 120 degrees, but we could estimate it definitely greater than 90 degrees, and it's significantly less than 180 degrees. So maybe in your estimation, you got to 125, 130, but you get the idea. You know that we use the guidelines of 90 degrees and 180 degrees to give an estimate. But even more importantly, let's take note of this point right here, the vertex that is shared between figure A and figure B. That is our center of rotation. So let's think about that as we move forward. Let's go on to our next task. So here we have a little activity called How Did You Make That Move? So what we have here is another set of dance moves. And we can kind of think of this little guy as maybe a little rabbit with his ears pointing up in the air. And that might help us to kind of think about him and talk about him. So what I want you to do is pause, and I want you to take 5 minutes, maybe even 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, let's say, no more than 10. So we could say 5 to 10. And I want you to think about all of the moves that this figure is making as it moves from frame 1 to frame 2, frame 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, and 5 to 6. And you'll also see we have a new move that's different from what we talked about yesterday. So pause the video and think about those things. Okay, hopefully you spent some time thinking about that, perhaps talking with your neighbor. It's a good thing to do. So when we move from frame 1 to frame 2, here's frame 1, here's frame 2. We have a shift to the right. When we move from frame 2 to frame 3, this is our new move. When we move from frame 3 to frame 4, so from frame 3 to 4, I hope you saw what was going on there. We have a turn. The figure has turned 90 degrees clockwise. So we have a turn 90 degrees clockwise. Okay, so clockwise is simply the way the clock goes around in analog time. So from frame 4 to frame 5, we have a shift up. And from 5 to frame 6, we do have this new move. And remember, when you look at these figures, look for parts or features of the figure that stand out so that you can kind of locate it in this space. So here I'm looking at this kind of, I guess we could call them rabbit ears. In frame 5, it faces down. In frame 6, it faces up. So how would you describe this new move? This new move that is from frame 2 to 3 and from frame 5 to 6. Take a minute and think about that. And if we look at that, especially it's really easy to see in 2 and 3. Let me get a new color here. Imagine here, where I've made this dotted line, that we've placed a mirror right there. And what we see between frame 2 and frame 3 is what we call a reflection, a mirror image. It's like we placed a mirror at right here. And if figure 2 was looking at itself in the mirror, it would see figure 3. And in 5 and 6, it's almost as if we put the mirror this way. And if figure 5 were looking at itself in the mirror, it would see figure 6. So that's a mirror image. So these mirror image moves are different from ones that we've talked about so far in math class. So we talked about how to identify, look for a part of a feature in the figure that will help you kind of locate the difference. So we're going to do a kind of card sort activity. We're going to use the pictures on this next page. And we're going to sort these pictures. We can just do it in our mind, unless you have scissors and you can cut them out. But we're going to sort these pictures into categories according to the type of moves that they show. So we want to describe each category, and we want to describe why it's different from the others in other categories. So let's take a look at these 12 figures. And I want you to spend, let's say 15 minutes sorting out, looking at these, and trying to organize them into categories. So let's organize them into, let's say, 3 categories. So take 15 minutes, do this with your neighbor, and then come back to the video. Okay, let's talk about what you've come up with. So we've got these categories. I think we definitely want to color code them a little bit. So let's get the highlighter and let's use some fall colors. So if I look at figure 1 and I look at what the green figure did to get to the cranberry colored figure, like a dark pink, what did it do? It kind of shifted diagonally, didn't it? It's the same shape, the same size, it's facing the same direction, but it kind of shifted up and over. Do we have any others that just kind of shifted? Well, if we look at number 7, it looks like this figure is also a shift, okay? And let's say number 8, we have a shift upwards. And I would even say number 10, we have, still a shift. So these, number 1, number 7, number 8, and number 10 all seem to shift in a certain direction. So I could put those in a category. I would say they sort of shift, and that would be number 1, 7, 8, and 10. Now I look at some other cards, some other dance moves, so to speak, and they seem to turn. And when I look at those, I look at number 2. See, we have this turn and we have a center of rotation right there. How about number 6 is a turn? It's not turned on a center of rotation. Perhaps if this were a little more carefully drawn, it could be. Number 9, we also have a turn. And number 12, a little harder to see, but it's still a turn. So it looks like 2, 6, 9, and 12. And let's get a new color. And then we have those mirror images, that new move that we talked about. And that would certainly be 3, 5, 4. Now, 4 is a funny one. We'll get back to that. And certainly 11. These are mirror images. When you look at 4, here's where the mirror would be located, right down the middle in the diagonal. So for number 3, the mirror would be located here. We talked about number 4. For number 5, the mirror would be located here. And for number 11, again, the mirror would be located right down the middle. So if the green figure were looking at itself in the mirror, it would see the cranberry colored figure. So the mirror image ones are 3, 4, 5, and 11. So were you able to organize them into these 3 categories? If not, do you see how these 3 categories are a good way to organize them? Well, we do have words for these categories, mathematical words. So let's talk about what those words are. We call these shifts, we call them translations. The turns we call rotations, and the mirrors we call reflections. So let's write those 3 words down now. So we have translations, and you can write this somewhere on your paper. We have rotations, and we have reflections. Okay, those are our 3 new terms. So I want to give you an opportunity to think about these some more and to look at these in action. So we're going to do something. We're going to go to an applet I have. And this, I've assigned this to you in Learn Zillion, if you're in my classes. And you can look at this applet on your own. So, let's go right to the applet. Here we are. Okay, so we have this first figure. And this is a translation. We have figure, I would call it figure A, the blue figure, okay, is shifting upward. That is a translation. Okay, do you see? I'll bring it back. And you can do this when you go and learn Zillion yourself. Okay, so a translation, if you want to know that a figure is a translation of another, let's see, I don't know how to make it do it again. Clear screen, there we go. There we go. If you want to know that a figure is a translation of another, look to see if it is still sitting in exactly the same way. Okay, is it in the same orientation and sitting on the same base? In this case, this bottom part right here where it glides along this line. So that's your translation. Now we have a rotation. And again, you can do this yourself in Learn Zillion. Play with it and look at it. We can go clockwise or we can go counterclockwise. So to detect if a figure is a rotation of another, you want to look to see if one figure is not standing up in exactly the same way as the other, but appears to be turned. So you don't want to confuse a rotation with a translation or a mirror image, okay? So again, counterclockwise, clockwise. And here we have a mirror image. We can think of this, there we go. We can think of this red line as the mirror, and when the blue figure looks at itself in the mirror, it would see the green figure, its reflection in the mirror. So the way to detect a reflection is to choose a feature like this kind of rabbit ears up here and see if it exists on one side but not the other. So here we have these rabbit ears pointing to the left, and then on the mirror image, this rabbit ear portion is pointing to the right. So we have now 3 new words. We have our translations, our rotations, and our reflections. So let's get back to our lesson. Here we are. So we do have a cool down. I want you to look at this figure. We have figure A moving to figure B, and we have 2 questions. What type of move takes figure A to become figure B? Explain your reasoning. So let's pause the video. I want you to take 5 minutes, maybe even less than 5 minutes, maybe even 3 minutes, and think about that. Okay, so to move from figure A to figure B, what is it? Is this a translation? Is this a rotation? Or is this a reflection? Well, this is definitely a rotation. We have a center of rotation at this point that I've just colored green. So if figure A is turned about the point shared by figure A and B, it will land on figure B. Think of this line as coming over and landing right there. And I'll change the color and let's do another line. This line would come over and it would land right here. Now that can happen in either direction. It can go counterclockwise, it can go clockwise. So when it rotates about a point, then we have a rotation. For the remainder of the class, I want you to read the lesson summary very carefully and make sure you understand these 3 new terms: the translation, the rotation, and the reflection. And remember, with regards to the rotation, we have 2 directions we can go. We can go clockwise, or we can go counterclockwise. And when you're finished that, make sure you've completed everything you're supposed to do. Make sure you've hole punched your papers and put them in your binder. And make sure you clear your area, collect all your wonderful things, and return any supplies that you used. Really good job today. I'm proud of how you pay attention. I'm proud of your willingness to learn something new. And I'm proud of how you're always come to school ready to learn. And remember, it takes practice. But that's okay, because with practice, I know you'll be great. Have a wonderful day.